Nioh is a PlayStation 4 exclusive action RPG with a heavy dose of supernatural horror. It's been in development at Team Ninja, the same developers of the Ninja Gaiden series, for nearly 10 years now. Fortunately, an alpha demo was recently released to let people take the game for a spin. You play as Samurai William, a giant-jawed silent protagonist who arrives on the shores of a tiny Japanese fishing village, only to find it overrun with bandits and demons. From there, players must explore the hostile environment, find and equip better weapons and armor, and confront the forces of evil. While it could initially be dismissed as a Dark Souls clone, Nioh is entirely different, and that comparison ends up being a disservice. Indeed, it shares the same tone, constant threat, and crushing difficulty as From Software's series. But Nioh is an entirely different beast, and even Dark Souls veterans will take some time getting settled in. Given that Team Ninja are famous for combat action games, it's no surprise that Nioh has great combat. Players can do battle with swords, spears, hammers, or axes, as well as a Yumi longbow. Some magic and ninjutsu abilities are available too, but melee combat is the biggest focus. The magic systems available in the alpha demo were quite limited, and made it seem like an entirely magic build might not be a viable strategy. Players are also prompted to choose a spirit guardian, magical figures steeped in Japanese folklore. These give players several passive buffs, like increased attack power or the ability to see enemies on the otherwise useless minimap, and they can be summoned in combat and used for devastating effect. If the weapons have a fault, it's that they break too easily. Until a certain point in the demo, repair items were scarce, and broken weapons had to make do. However, players will soon be drowning in the truckloads of weapons and armor dropped by the felled enemies. Nioh allows for an insane degree of dress-up, with hundreds of pieces of traditional Japanese armor and clothing, so players can trick out William however they see fit, and they'll always have several backup loadouts. A neat feature is the stance system. Players can toggle between a high, mid, or low stance. High stance attacks are slow and more damaging. Low stance are faster and weaker, and mid stance is defense orientated, and a good balance between the two. Although it's easy, and quite possible, to forget about the stance system and just stick with the mid stance, it's fun to play around with the different options and strategies. Much like in Dark Souls, players will need to manage a stamina bar as well as their health. Stamina depletes when you attack, sprint, evade, or take a hit while blocking. Unlike Dark Souls, blocking a hit nearly drains your entire stamina gauge and leaves players open for massive and devastating damage. This makes blocking far less of a viable strategy than in Dark Souls, and more emphasis is placed on evading and skillful dodges. The same applies to enemies as well, and you'll find yourself pressing the attack when your foe is taking a breather, and hitting them for massive damage. Another interesting feature lies in the options menu. Players can choose whether to optimize the frame rate or the resolution. This is a noticeably PC-like option, although it begs the question of whether or not frame rate optimizers can play co-op with resolution optimizers. If the final game has some kind of PvP element, then one option may have an advantage over the other. There wasn't much opportunity to test the multiplayer. Co-op options were available in the alpha demo, but unfortunately, no one was summoned. The demo did involve a quasi-PvP, however. Much like in Dark Souls, fallen players left behind a bloodstain commemorating their death. In Nioh, players can access these to fight a CPU-controlled version of the dead player, with the same weapons and armor that they had while they died. This allows one to always have a challenging fight close at hand, without having to worry about an invasion. All in all, our time with Nioh was highly positive. The game's atmosphere is creepy and threatening, the enemies are monstrous and merciless, and it invokes that same feeling of awe and tension that Dark Souls had the first time we played it. The combat is more in-depth, and the expansive list of unlockable skills, combos and spells will give you plenty to master. keep an eye on Nioh. I know we will.